Schaefer yaks. Woo!
Schaefer.
Cool. Schaefer yaks.
Schaefer yaks.
Schaefer yaks.
Schaefer yaks.
Protect this and this, and we're good.
Except for the one recently.
Or except for that one yesterday.
Schaefer yaks.
Schaefer yaks.
Schaefer yaks. Schaefer yaks.
Schaefer yaks.
Disclaimer: I am not an expert. This content is meant to encourage safety and to educate on the dangers of whitewater kayaking. Extreme caution should be exercised when navigating hazardous water. Boater discretion is advised.
Whitewater kayaking is one of, if not the most, fulfilling sports. It's a harmonic dance between intrinsic danger and breathtaking scenery. It challenges your physical capabilities and mental tenacity. How does a kayaker take the next step? The progression into Class 4 and Class 5, safely, or more safely. As mentioned in the disclaimer, I'm not an expert. So I enlisted some advanced kayakers to help answer. They tell their stories, share their experiences, and give us their rules for Stouts.
What wisdom would you impart to someone who is trying to take that next step and step up into the more, consequential stout runs?
A big thing is that there's no need to rush. There's like an insanely large amount of good Class 4 runs or runs that have like a single Class 5 or something like that on it. So there's tons of time to have fun there, because really when you go from 4 to 5, like 5's not necessarily like a ton more fun, just brings more consequence. So you want to be really confident out on Class 4, and then stepping up into the Class 5, you open up a whole new range. So like, a lot of times people think like, oh, I made it to Class 4. This is kind of the rapid that I need to expect. When you go to Class 5, there's an entire range. So like there's easy Class 5s, which is typically what I run. And then there's really hard Class 5s that have consequences that I'm not prepared to tackle with, to mess with. So it really...
Could you give me an example? Like what would be... I'm assuming Oceania would be like an easier Class 5 versus what would be like one of the harder?
Let's see, hard Class 5. I mean, probably the most well-known one in the Southeast would be Gorilla, just because there's a feature right above the drop that everybody sees called the notch that can produce some very unpredictable results. So, and then the drop actually lands onto slanted rock, so not a good one to run upside down or something like that. So, yeah. So that would be a harder Class 5. But I mean, there's tons of them out there. If you look at like the Thompson big skate park slides, you build up tons of speed. It's a little bouncy. So when things do go wrong, I've heard of several like broken bones out there and stuff. So yeah. Then there's like some like longer Class 5s that have a lot of technical moves. So there's a lot of those examples on like Linville. And on that one, there's a Linville's a great example. It's a Class 5 run. There's some people that portage 2 rapids out there, 3 rapids out there, 5 rapids out there, because there are harder Class 5s out there, or ones with consequences that people don't want to mess with.
Okay, this is a good one, and I might be a good person for this, because on the send scale, I'm not the highest. I don't go stay on the knife's edge every weekend, running the biggest, baddest stuff out there. And I think some of that is because I am a little older, and when I was younger, I didn't walk anything. If I came to a rapid, and I knew where I was, I knew what rivers I was going on to, so I felt good about doing the rapids on that river. I ran it. And I get a little older, now I'm taking people, my son or something all the time, and I view it a little differently. I want my son to come home healthy, smiling, and having had a good experience. And that should be no different from everyone else I'm taking or that I'm paddling with. But other adults make those own decisions by themselves. But what it's done is open my eyes to the fact that I want to be doing this for a long, long time to come. And if you stay on the knife's edge, you're going to see some things, you're going to have to deal with some things. It's like a numbers game. You can't do it perfect every time. And if you get into water that requires perfection every time, it's just a matter of time before you have a negative experience. We'll just say it that way. And that's going to happen. You have to bounce back. You have to do what you can. And hopefully it will be just a good story you tell your friends. Sometimes it's a little injury, or sometimes it's a bigger injury. Things happen. But the best boaters in the world sometimes meet their match on the river. And these young bucks coming up, I think it's hard for them to really come to terms with this. If you're staying in dangerous whitewater all the time, you just need to be prepared for what that means, what that entails, and have a full understanding of what you're getting into. That being said, I do like to go run some big stuff from time to time, but I've also found a lot of joy in running, class 3, 4 stuff. I skipped almost all the class 3 stuff coming up. Rediscovered it when I came back through with my son and taught him. And now I'm teaching my son how to kayak. And in the back of my mind is, he's going to be doing this big stuff. And I don't know, that's going to be a little nerve wracking if he's out there, hey dad, I'm waiting for the day when he says I can't come with him because it's too big,
Oh,
But
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So I want him to approach everything in the smartest way possible. If he wants to run that stuff, I'm going to help make it happen. But I want him to be cerebral about it, to be smart. And I think if I could convey any message, it was be smart. I'm not saying don't run it. I'm just saying be smart. And that kind of covers a lot of things. And one of the better ways to do this is to stay with old guard folks who've done this for a long time and have seen a thing or two already and are, the saying, beware the old man in a young man's game. It's kind of one of those things.
I would always say that progression is personal. Don't base your progression off of some other person. And one thing that I was actually thinking about this today when I was thinking about what I was going to say here is slow down. Don't rush yourself, especially not just for a Facebook post or an Instagram post or a YouTube video. Don't rush yourself, because when you start doing that, you stop really experiencing and enjoying the rivers that you're on. So for me, it's one I love every moment that I'm out there on the river. It doesn't matter what river I'm on. If I still make it to the Cartacay, I have a blast every single second. And this is a class 2 river. When I go do attainments on a class 1 river, I have fun. Slow down and enjoy it, because that next river that you're chasing, it's not going to be that good if you're just chasing the next one, because you're going to check it off the list, you're going to forget about it, and you're just going to be chasing. It's like a drug addict, man, chasing that high. You're never going to get that fix. You're never going to get the fix. So slow down and enjoy the place you're at. Take your time. Don't rush, because if you get hurt, you can't go kayaking anymore. And honestly, that's what I tell myself every time I think about running Sunshine is if I screw it up and I hurt myself, I'm not going to get to go kayaking anymore.
Find your group, find your people, find people who are like-minded and whitewater as you are, and you know, want to push themselves at the rate that you want to push yourself, and then at the same time at the safety, at like adding the safety into this. Like there's a way to safely push yourself into running class 4 or 5, whatever it may be, and a lot of those times it's building those blocks. Like it's those building blocks of like, this is how we get better. And like even just the little things of like making class 3 harder, like doing hard moves in easy whitewater.
Yeah,
exactly. And so like, and I feel like that's been kind of lost in the last couple years, just because a lot of the up and coming people are just sending it and they're making it, but you know, in the middle of it, there's probably been some cracks, or there's probably been some crashes, there's probably been some weird stuff to go down. And you know, the sad part about whitewater is we don't talk about the close calls. We very rarely talk about the close calls. The only thing that we talk about is when people die.
Right.
And so how do you change this mentality of, let's just not talk about only when people die, but let's talk about that close call that so-and-so had. And those are hard to come by, you know, and that's, it's hard for people to be like, oh yeah, I had a close call in the river today. Like this happened.
Some people don't like to share their swims.
Yeah.
I see epic dudes take swims and then you never see it.
Yeah.
That's part of my motivation right now is for what you literally just said.
Yeah.
I've seen too many close calls, and we need the heroes. We need you guys. They don't want to listen to me.
You know, Bren Orton, I don't know if you've seen the video that his highlight reel that he put out this year, but if you haven't seen it, watch it. Bren's voice,
the whole way.
Yeah, Bren's voice will be exponentially louder than mine ever will be, and he is very eloquent, and just he's been through a lot, just like a lot of professional whitewater kayakers have been, or just even your weekend warriors.
Yeah.
And it's hard to put stuff like that behind you and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to keep doing this because this is how I find joy. Or do I keep doing this because this is where I find comfort? You know, like this is this whole...
That inner.
Yeah.
Read beta. Do extensive amount of research on the run. Video scout, YouTube videos, etc., etc. I was talking with some people after Tallulah yesterday, and we had got on that topic, and I really strongly feel like there's not enough people that read beta or study a run. You know what I mean? Like, there's been times where I've went to go get on a run for like my second lap, and I'm very adamant about filming my PFDs just so that I can keep the footage for future reference. Like my second time on that run, the night before I'll go through the footage, refresh my mind, and then the next day when we're out there, things look familiar. I can be like, oh, I remember this, I remember the line through here. And all that's doing is helping the person that's leading. You know what I mean? You're one less person he has to worry about having their shit together. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, beta, video scouting, be a little more in tune with the people you're getting on the water with. That element of having trust there, that is so important, man. It's so important to trust the people that you're getting on the water with. I can tell you from my own personal experience, getting on the water with strangers versus getting on the water with people that I know, the dynamic is night and day difference. You don't know if that person is gonna save you or if they're gonna have their shit together. People lie or may over exaggerate about themselves just so that you don't turn them away, you know what I mean, about getting on the river. And I think that just ties into communication, like we were talking earlier. You know, communication, knowing that person, what kind of runs they've been down, et cetera, et cetera.
So things I consider before running a stout. For me personally, I'm 27 now. All right, I'm 27. I want kayaking to be my career, right? I'm not working a real job, right? I want kayaking to be my career. I want whitewater to be my career. So for me, if I'm in front of a stout and I'm like, hey, I don't feel good about this today, I'll just walk it. If I'm not feeling pretty much 100% on it, I'm just gonna walk it. It's not worth it for me to take that kind of risk. So when it comes to stouts, if it's not, I'm at 100% and I feel 100% ready for this, and I know that I'm going to make this work, then I'll pass. I'll run another time. I plan to be kayaking for decades. I'll come back another year. You know,
That's
even if it
incredible
only
foresight and wisdom for a 27-year-old. I want to throw that out there. Wow.
I just think of it as like everyone else is like, oh, well, this is what I want to do for a living, and like kayaking is what I want to do for a living. And I've seen enough people not be able to make it a living because they've either hurt themselves or they've burned themselves out or whatever, that it's just like it doesn't matter to me anymore. I'm aware of who I am and I'm comfortable with that. So what if I'm not running class 5 every single time I go out? So what if I'm not running every rapid every time I go out? I'm okay, you know?
You know, it's funny. I just had a discussion with a guy the other day because we were doing Watauga and we were getting up to State Line Falls, and he was like, "Man, can we just run it? I really don't want it because if I get out and look at it, I'm just gonna get spooked and not want to run it." You know, and he said the same thing at Oceana. I said, "Listen, the line at Oceana is so specific. You need to be right on the dot to have a good run. That you've got to get out and look at it. You know, you just have to go down and look at it." So he did at Oceana, and then we're getting up to State Line Falls, and he'd say the same mantra, "Hey man, can I just Blue Angel you down and not look at it?" And I said, "Listen, I really think it's important that you look at it because what happens, like I might flip or blow the line, and you need to know where you're going." So we got out and looked at it, that kind of thing. And so we're bebopping down. We go back up, get in our boats. We're bebopping down, went to catch an eddy and stuff. I caught the eddy, and sure enough, he blows the eddy, and he's headed right to State Line Falls. And the thing is, State Line, there's a lot of places that looks like you could run it, but there's really, just really one line, And I am so thankful that I told him, no, we're going to go look at it, because he blew that eddy and then had to run the falls, and he could have been majorly hurt, if not killed, if he did not know where to go. And so after, I ran the line and, we're talking about it, I said, "Listen, dude, this is exactly what I was saying." I said, "This is why you have to look at these rapids, even though you don't want to look at them, because if you hadn't looked at that stuff, we could be taking you on a backboard right now."
What wisdom would you impart to boaters who are looking to step into the class 4 and class 5 stout ring?
I would say, first off, don't rush your progression. Just because all your friends, you see them going out and doing harder things and stuff, doesn't necessarily mean you should follow them. You should be doing, I think this is the best way to step up to harder things, is do hard moves on easy runs. Like, get out there on the Ecoe and work the Ecoe for 7, however long until the water shuts off. Just stay out there and get in hard eddies, do hard ferries. It's not going to work out all the time. There's going to be moments where you get shit whipped or trashed in a hole. But that is the part of progression that is always in the back of our minds, that things can go wrong. But most of the time, if you're not thinking about the bad stuff, if you're staying positive, then it usually stays positive. And always have good buddies with you that are willing to pick up your belongings after the thrashing.
You ease into that shit.
You go to I guess the biggest thing is really getting comfortable with water. Get comfortable being upside down and used to that spatial awareness of being upside down.
Do you have any personal experiences or close calls or any situations that you were put in that may have shaped the way you approach safety today?
Yeah, this is one thing that I push a lot for people is learning how to hand roll, because I actually broke both my feet in my second year of boating because I didn't have a hand roll. And what happened was I was coming into the entrance to the Sinks drop, the waterfall there, which is really rocky. There's a little landing pad kind of on the right side. So you kind of come in at left to right, delayed boof, and you land over the right side because it's almost all rock everywhere. And I've talked to people that have broken their leg there, broken their boats there, broken their paddles. There's stuff gets broken there all the time just because it's so rocky at the bottom. So what happened was I was coming to this little trough at the top of it, and I flipped upside down, and it's so shallow that I had my hand paddles got ripped off, right? So at that point, I had no bare hand roll. And so I had no choice but to came out of my boat, swept over to the left side of it and landed right on rocks and had 2 broken feet, and then had to crawl out of there and was in 2 casts for 3 months, wheeling around in an office chair in my house and stuff. And the thing is, as soon as I healed up, I got in the pool and I learned how to bare hand roll, because if I had a bare hand roll in that circumstance, I could have rolled myself up, I could have rode it out as best I could. And I preach and preach and preach to everybody that I boat with is you need to learn how to bare hand roll, because I don't want you to be the top of State Line Falls, flip upside down, you lose your paddle, and then you have to come out and swim the falls, because you do not want to be in that situation. And as a matter of fact, when I go to roll session now, and I spend the first 15, 20 minutes barehanded in my boat, just paddling around, trying to stern square, trying to do moves and stuff, and then rolling up, because I want bare hand rolling to be as natural as rolling with stick paddle or hand paddles or whatever, because when you're in that situation, you got to have your bare hand roll and it's got to be there. And so I spend roll session a lot of 15 to 20 minutes every single time barehanded, because I want it to be there.
I mean, you probably have 1,000 at this point, but was there
so
one?
Many.
I mean, we talk about too when we're younger. When I was younger, I wasn't a kayaker. I just would drink and get on the water and car decay,
right?
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I never really had an incident that shaped me into safety. But I feel like for a lot of people, that is that was their motive. They saw something or they personally experienced something, and they're like, "Shit, I got to take safety way more seriously now."
I mean, I think that I obviously have had a lot of weird moments on the river, but I think what shaped me the most was just that from going to world class, we were very safety oriented. And so you have to be when you're kayaking with that many kids. And so I already came into the whitewater world already very safety oriented. And so that was my, kind of my thought process, even as I started getting to be a better kayaker, when you're about to run a really big drop or whatever, and you're okay, well, who's at the bottom? Is there somebody in their boat versus is there somebody on land? If I do need a rope, is it going to come from river right or river left? It's these little things. Also, my mom at one point, she hiked in to the Raven Fork one day to go watch us all run the Raven Fork, and I swam and got body re-soaked in this hole.
Oh no.
And she said that like all that she could see was like one limb at a time. She'd be like, oh, I saw your hand, and then I saw your foot, and then like the top of your helmet, and you like didn't come up. I got body research for like not a super long time, but long enough to where I was like, I'm now uncomfortable. Like this is not fun. But like luckily where I was, I came out of the hole and came around the corner, and Billy Jones was right there, and he pulled me in, and it ended up not being that big of a deal. But like it was interesting for my mom to experience something like that, because she is. She paddles like class 4, well, class 3. She's more of like a class 3 kayaker. Like we run the Nantahala together. She's super good. She hasn't missed a green race for 18 years in a row. Like she'll come and hike into the green, and I mean, she's 70, and she's just like still smashing it, which is awesome.
So genetic, athleticism is good in you.
I mean, I hope so. I mean, if I'm 70 and I'm like half as active as her, I'm like, I will be so happy. But yeah, I don't know.
Do you have any personal experiences or close calls or any situations that you were put in that may have shaped the way you approach safety today?
Fortunately, I haven't had any like major close calls recently.
Except for the one recently.
Or except for that one yesterday. except for this one time.
Except for
yesterday. But that one wasn't dire though. Like
Yep.
I could have eventually gotten out of it. But I'd say there was one that got me as a kid, and it was on the Ocoee. I got stuck in this hole that I thought I was never going to come out of. And at this point, I was kind of like, I'd put on with my dad, and he'd want to take his time and surf like everything. And I just want to get down to hellhole as fast as I could. So, we'd end up like parting ways by the doldrums. I'd be like, here, you hang out with all your buddies. I'm going down here to surf. And I was working my way down, and I get to Jamas, and I guess about 3/4 of the way through the rapid, there's that big shelf with all the different pour overs.
Yep.
Well, there's one on the very far left that just dumps into this abyss of a hole.
Yeah, it's the pour over hole.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know about this hole as a kid until this day, and I went right into it. And it like immediately sucked me out of my boat. And I remember like trying to swim up to the top, and it would just keep like, I'd get up and then pull me back down. I'd get up and pull me back down. And eventually like I balled up as tight as I could, and it sucked me down a little bit, and then it spit me out. And then I popped up into that little whirlpool at the bottom, went back under. And I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna run out of air under here. And then I popped back up, and then this raft guy like saw me and picked me up out of the water and just set me in the raft for a minute. That one got me as a kid. I'd imagine he saw like the whole thing, because they were probably
you can see it's all wide open.
Yeah, they were probably coming down behind and sees my little ass get sucked under. And
oh man, I'm gonna need you to go to Ocoee tomorrow and do a little reenactment for me.
Yeah.
You actually already answered this question. I said the ninth question was, would you mind sharing any personal experiences that have kind of shaped your approach to safety?
Okay.
I think I might have PTSD from some of the stories you told me today.
It really comes down to I believe the trip leader is responsible solely for everything that happens on that trip. And I trip lead a decent amount now. So that really all plays into account there. I would also add that swimming go left was kind of the first event in a series of events that made me kind of reevaluate the sport.
I watched your video.
So before I swam go left, I had never really, I had swims, but I was always just like, oh, whatever. It's class swimming, it's like before I really had a consistent goal. I was swimming like class 30, whatever. But when I swam go left, I was like, wow. As I'm swimming, I'm like, wow, one person has died and go left. Boats pin all the time. This is a super sketchy rapid. Yep. And right now I'm out of my boat swimming it. It wasn't like I'm out of breath, I need to pull my skirt swim. It was hey, I'm really worried I'm about to pin across the gap right now. So I need to get out of this boat so I can get out. And I basically had to throw myself through the gap between the rocks to get out of there. And it happened, it worked. Plenty of people swim go left, it happens. But I think that was the first moment where I was like, okay, I need to not just be sending everything I see. And then within that week, I had a few more bad experiences that did not involve me necessarily. I wasn't the one that was in the situation, but I witnessed a few of them, and many of them were very near misses. And so after that week, I was like, all right, I need to make sure I understand what I'm getting into.
Do you have any personal experiences that have shaped your approach to safety now?
Sure. Going and getting instruction for sure gives you a different appreciation for it. Getting into situations.
Level 4 instructor.
Yeah. But yeah, it's a lot of times you learn, unfortunately, by mistakes, right? So made a mistake one time towards the beginning where we got on a river and it flashed on us. So learning, then that started making me think a lot about how to judge water levels and what level a run would get at, how rainfall affects the river, and how much delay you kind of see in different things. Then there was the time that we got caught out at night on Chattooga, and we had 2 headlamps for 6 people trying to get through 5 falls. So that was a good one. But yeah,
that is relative in this situation.
Do what?
I said good as a relative term for this situation.
Yeah, So yeah, that one got us to all get good headlamps. Because I had a headlamp that night, but it wasn't a great one. So then we ended up all getting good headlamps and learning how to use them. We ended up testing them out on Teleco. So we did a whole test run. We ran it during the day, then came back at night, and so we already knew there's no wood. Controlled thing, and it drilled the lines into our head. We'd all ran it a ton, so went out there and tested out how to run at night with headlamps. So, that was a fun experience.
Woo. I had an incident on the Raven Fork where we were kind of routing it down. And I got stuck in a hole that they told me that I wouldn't get stuck in. So, I think I went into it a little complacent because they told me, just punch the hole, it's going to be fine. And I got a little bit lazy because I didn't get out to scout it. So as I came over the horizon line, I was looking downstream to see where I needed to go next. And when I hit the hole, it pulled me back in. And I had the best surf of my life in a scorch. It was fantastic. I was doing spins. I felt totally in control until I realized I couldn't get out. So I was doing everything. I tried plugging it with the front of the boat and I just hit the bottom. I tried plugging it with the back of the boat. I just hit the bottom. I tried getting out to the players right, couldn't get out. Tried getting out river players left, and it just kept feeding me back right in and spinning me around. And for a while, you know, I tried. And then I kind of settled in thinking that maybe these guys can get up and get to me. And at one point I was as far out to players left as I thought I could get. And I dropped my edge and it flipped me over, flattened my head on the rocks at the bottom. And at that point I was like, that's it, we're done. I don't want any more of this. I let go of my paddle because I didn't know where I was going to need to go next. Because I was told, you know, at the bottom left is death, don't go there, stay over in the eddy on the right. When I flipped over, I didn't know where I was going to end up. So pulled my skirt, popped out. It's a spot where there's a little crack on the right. So I started sliding down in this crack and there was a tree sticking out at the top of the crack, which I just chested and was able to climb out on top of. At that point, the guys were coming up, you know, it was kind of gorged out. So they weren't able to get to me fast. Hindsight, I probably should have got out sooner so they could have got my boat before it flushed into the death on the left. It went into a big root ball tree and took a little while and a couple ropes, but we got it out and my breakdown paddle stayed in the boat. So I was able to keep going. But yeah, it wasn't a really fun experience once I realized I was stuck, because I was having fun for a minute there, man. I was surfing really good. And then I realized I couldn't get out.
As you get our age or my age, I'm a little older than you, I think, but it becomes, you really feel, you think you can run with the young dogs until you swim. When I swam Joe, I thought, you know, they call it takeout rapid. If you haven't seen that, go watch it. It was embarrassing, but it happens to everybody. So it's good, I think, that you remember. Yeah, no, that was Chioa.
Chioa, okay.
Chioa with Wade and Jerry and the boys, and someone else swam, and I was fiddling around getting a paddle. Didn't know where I was exactly on the river. I thought I was through the rapid and just to the boogie.
Oh yeah, you were going through Chris Patton's paddle.
Yeah, I was fiddling with Chris's paddle, and then I came to the horizon. I was like, I've messed up. You know, there's that moment you're like, and you know, when you hear Wade yelling and it sounds like Charlie Brown's mom, you don't know what he's saying, but you know you're messing up because he's yelling at you. You're like, yeah, I know, but I'm committed now. We're going over this thing. And I don't know what he was telling me, keep my bow up. When I came over the lip, there was a rock, probably 6 feet wide there, kind of on the middle left of the river. It was like the one place, I think, in the entire river I could not go over and be in water again. And it just like beat me to death going down through the rapid after that. And then I swam, and then it's exhausting. I just wanted, I won't lie. I understand why they call it takeout rapid. I was like, how bad would it be if I just said, see you at the bottom, boys, it will take a little minute, but I'm not gonna do that. I'm getting back in. And that's the other thing. How do you respond to failure, you know, in these rapids? If you commit to a gorge that you have to run and you feel outclassed, when you get in there, what do you do then? Does anyone talk about that? Like, you keep going? Like, you get out the climbing ropes and start trying to make a way out of the gorge? Like, your crew's in there with you. So hopefully you've made a good decision. You are actually good enough to be in there. But if you meet disaster, being able to pull that back together and finish the run, which I did, and had a fantastic rest of the day, ran the bottom half twice. I mean, it would have been a major disappointment if I had walked off the river. But I know people make those decisions in that moment, and being able to pull it together.
The right decision.
Yeah, sometimes it is. So assessing, like, was that a fluke? Am I prepared to be here really? Is this river really better than me? You know, there's a lot of things that you're gonna have to process. Like, am I really good enough to be here? And you're just gonna have to be able to know yes or no. And if you are, saddle up, let's get going, get focused back on the river. If you're not, you know, calling the audible, being smart. Maybe today's not my day. You know, it all goes into the equation.
like a rock pile there on the right of the exit where there's actually a sieve there. And a sieve is kind of formed in like a triangle. You got like an overhang rock, and then there's another rock that kind of protrudes like this. There's enough slot there for a boat to wedge in. And I wasn't anticipating how strong the flow was moving right to left after the booth, and it just caught my edge and took me under, and I wedged up into the sieve kind of upside down with the pour over coming in from the side. I'm like, I'm running out of oxygen. I got to do something. I can't hear them. I don't know how close they are to me. God knows they could have got wiped down to the next rapid. They're like, where's Matt? You know, maybe. I don't know. All this is running through my head so fast. And I start feeling around the boat, and I felt that there was a boulder kind of like on my left side. And I put both hands that way and was able to turn my head and kind of positioned it. And now I'm like, I started moving my head like up and down to try and find a certain angle to create an air pocket there. And I was able to create an air pocket with my helmet to give them more time to get to me. They said that they were right above me on the overhang rock, yelling, screaming for me to grab the rope. And I couldn't hear them, dude. I saw a faint glimpse of like yellow swing past the curtain. And I was like, that's a rope. So I'm supporting all my weight with one hand because I'm worried that if I slip, it's gonna cause the boat to go completely upside down, and then I'm gonna be like submerged in the sieve, and then that would have been imminent death. You know what I mean? So I'm holding all my weight with this hand, reaching, trying to grab the rope. Finally get a hand on the rope. And dude, as soon as I take my weight off the other hand, the pour over was so strong, it just caused me to somersault forward. Luckily, I got sucked through the tunnel on my skirt. The skirt was still on the boat.
If you couldn't tell a lot from their answers, these amazing people care a lot about our community. I have a great deal of respect and admiration for them. Please extend them your support and gratitude. Let's show them our love, Yak fam.
A brief recap of what we've heard.
In episode 1, we learned that stout has different meanings and can be subjective to the paddler. That the perfect group size is 3 to 6, and the preferred ratio for personal first descents is 1 PFD for every 4 skilled paddlers. But both of these can vary based on the skill level of the paddler and the conditions of the water. In episode 2, we discussed necessary skills, swiftwater rescue, and gear. And in this episode, we heard their wisdom. To take it slow. Progression is personal. Don't rush it. Work harder moves on less consequential water. Self-preservation is key to longevity. Have a reliable hand roll. Study beta, lots of beta. Scout the rapids. Find a mentor. Find many mentors. Find your group. Talk about the close calls. It's called Rules for Stouts for a reason. Safety. I want us all to be able to enjoy Stouts and make it home. So I'm encouraging all of us to develop our own rules. Make them your own. Make them dynamically. Here are my rules for Stouts. Rule number 1, have fun. Whether I'm paddling Stouts or Class 2, my ultimate goal is to have fun. Even if this means slowing my progression, fun is greater than anxiety. Rule number 2, have the right support. Having the right group size and right paddlers can be the difference between having a bad day and a good one. This threshold is even smaller on higher classification whitewater. On runs like Chihuahua, for example, I'll want a smaller group of people I'm well acquainted with and that are like-minded about safety. Rule number 3, be prepared. This means having the right skills, support, and gear for the situation, but also means being prepared mentally. Even on our best days, things go wrong. Be prepared to perform or assist on a rescue, or to be rescued. Despite your best efforts, your rescue attempts may fail. Be prepared for what that may mean. Rule number 4, be humble. One of the more dangerous and toxic aspects of paddling Stouts are the egotistical boaters. They needlessly place themselves and their friends in harm's way chasing clout. This sport is filled with greatness everywhere we look, and so many of them are willing to teach. You may miss out on many more things if you forget to stay humble. All right, Yak fam. I hope you enjoyed this installment of Rules for Stouts. It is something we will be revisiting in the future, but for now, subscribe, tap the bell icon to get notified for future content like this.